The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And hello, everybody. Welcome back we're back into our Sunday roll, Sunday SEC talk, and we're going to be recapping a lot of games that happened, a lot of key games. Georgia looked dominant, and they look like one of the best teams in the country once again. And then also Missouri put in a whooping on, as you can see in the title, become the Tennessee State champs. As you didn't know, they beat Memphis, they beat Middle Tennessee State, they beat Vanderbilt, and then they beat Tennessee. So 4-0 against the state of Tennessee, and we also have coaching firing, which probably won't be the last of this SEC season. So, Wade, how was your weekend?
Pretty good. I watched the Tigers defeat the Gators one last time. That was the final scheduled meeting between the two teams, and it did not disappoint. Both teams were able to score pretty much at will, and LSU made a couple big stops on defense to allow for a little bit of separation, and Jaden Daniels just could not be stopped. I mean, we've seen him really advance as a passer this year, but it seems like in the Alabama game and now in the Florida game, we've seen him add in the legs as well. Like, he didn't forget how to run. He's just been more selective with it. He stays in the pocket and delivers strikes to Neighbors and Brian Thomas. But when he needs to, he can sure show off those wheels, can he?
Yeah, Daniels, I mean, he was the first FBS player to not only pass for 350 yards, but also 200 yards. Nobody has done it except for Mr. Jaden Daniels. So Daniels is in the history books. And outside of a guy named Joe Burrow, it might be Jaden Daniels being the number 2 LSU quarterback of all time. That's definitely going to be up for debate. We'll get into Jaden Daniels in our hot topic. So we'll talk about him possibly being the Heisman race and really the only front runner to win it for the SEC, but we'll definitely get into that, and we'll also get into the Jimbo talk later on. So, but first we get into all that, let's get into our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll, since the show rolls on Sunday, and that's the day that the AP poll rolls out. That's the poll that we go with. So, number 1, Georgia. The AP poll gets it right. I mean, this is exactly how it should be. I would be absolutely shocked if Georgia isn't the number 1 team on Tuesday. And if it is, I'm going to burn down the playoff committee, because there's ain't no way that Ohio State, ain't no way that Michigan should be number 1. It should be Georgia, especially after that dominant performance against Ole Miss. Number 8, Alabama. Alabama continues to be the number 8 spot. They did not move. Texas just keeps on winning. As long as Texas wins, they're going to be behind them, especially with the head-to-head. Then number 11, Missouri was definitely the big movers in the SEC. Missouri sitting only at 2 losses. They have Florida and Arkansas. Both of those teams are not looking too good, so Missouri well on their way to 10 wins, maybe even 11 wins, especially if they get to one of the New Year's Six bowl games. Number 13 is Ole Miss. Didn't look great. It looked great for a quarter, at least, in Athens, but Georgia really flexed their muscles against Ole Miss. LSU moves up a couple of spots after the shootout in the Bayou against the Gators. And then number 21, Tennessee, fell down after Missouri really put it to them. So really the 6 teams that you've been seeing for the past couple of weeks. So we'll have 6 in the AP Top 25. We'll see on Tuesday night how many we get in the college football playoff. So let's go on to our reminder segment. Just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, comments, or statements you want to make, we want to get our viewers your interaction. So if you have any comments, leave it in the comment section down below, and we will get it to you as we go on. All right, let's get into some SEC fantasy presented by Milo Bros Golf. I honestly don't know what the weather is going to great. I mean, is it going to be 80 degrees, or it's going to be 60 degrees, or it's going to be 50 degrees? You never know. But we do have some rain coming through here. So the drought's been going on, so that'll definitely help. But Molly Bros Golf presented by SEC Fantasy. If you want to upgrade your gear on and off the course, head on over to Molly Bros Golf and use code BELLYUP, 15% off. Head on over to mollybros.com. Definitely a great company. Definitely use it if you want to upgrade that gear with the holiday season. If somebody is a golf fanatic, maybe Molly Bros Golf, use them for your holiday savings this season. So let's get into the rules before we get into the recap of week 11. So pretty much the same criteria as you see week in and week out. If you are listening or watching to the show, one quarterback, a running back, a receiver, and a defense. We both use our Vandy rules, so that is done at least for this year. It'll be back next year. And then you cannot use a player you picked from last week. And, of course, the total yardage for all the position players. And the defense, of course, you take their total points too. So we'll see if we have another high-scoring shootout. Last time the winner got to 300s. And once again, looks like you got into the 300s. So go over your Team Gamecocks is what I'm going to call it in week number 11.
Yeah. A lot of Garnet on the screen here, especially if you consider Anais Smith from A&M as well, wearing the maroon. But Spencer Rattler, he did exactly what I said. I think if you rewind the tape, I said, I think Rattler can get me 350 yards. And he did that exactly in the air and then added 2 rushing yards. So good day for Rattler. He took command over Vanderbilt. South Carolina was one of the big surprises of the week. We saw it last year. This team got on a hot streak. Offense looked really good to close out the year. They pulled off an upset over Tennessee. This year it's Kentucky and Clemson that they'll have to face. So those two teams might need to be on alert because Rattler sure looked good on Saturday. Jarquez Hunter continued his streak of 100-plus yard games. He had 123 total yards for the Auburn Tigers, and they looked really impressive against Arkansas. We'll get into that in a bit. And then Anais Smith, this was a bit of a miss. He only had 68 yards in his team's big victory over Mississippi State. He also fumbled the ball twice, so really just not a great day for him, but I'll take the yardage for my total. And then the South Carolina defense was very impressive, in my opinion. They let up just 6 points and 234 yards to Vanderbilt, so that's definitely their best effort against anybody. I mean, even against Furman, they let up more. So Gamecock defense stepped up. I think they got a little bit healthier, but to me, that says a lot about Vanderbilt as well. I mean, this team's just nowhere close to being able to compete in the SEC if you're going to get drubbed by the Gamecocks 47-6. But
no, not at all. Definitely a program that's going backwards. And like you mentioned, South Carolina is right in there. They're 4-6. They got Kentucky and and Clemson both at their home place. So we'll see if the Gamecocks can get to that 6 win. I'll go ahead and say it. Jarquez Hunter is going to be on our award show. He's going to be up for the running back of the year, probably along with Ray Davis. But, man, this Jarquez Hunter has been on an absolute tear. Definitely a big factor in Auburn's huge victory. And then Anais Smith, he got a touchdown along with that. You would have got additional fantasy points if this worked like actual fantasy football. So a very good outing as 309. So we'll see if that tallies on. Another victory for you as I go on to my team. As you can see on the bottom, it did, but still favorable. I mean, we haven't really had many negatives. We only had one negative this year is by me. I blame one of the defenses that I had. But Brady Cook, quarterback of Missouri, he did what I thought he was going to do. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a blowout between Missouri and Tennessee, but I take it. He had 55 rushing yards, paired that with 260 to put him at 330. Cedric Alexander, the running back of Vanderbilt, like you, Will Shepherd didn't really do much for you. Cedric Alexander didn't really do much for me.
The Vanderbilt rule, less than 100
nice
yards.
Knowing you, but we're probably done taking you this year, especially the way that the offense has been rolling. But 43 yards, 20 of that coming through the air, 20 of that on the ground. Malik Neighbors, I guess I kind of missed on this one. Brian Thomas was the leading receiver with 150, but nonetheless, Malik Neighbors, we really missed on Jay Daniels. That man had 600 total yards of offense, and that would have been an absolute, I can't even imagine the score of that. And then Texas A&M defense, like South Carolina, going up against a bad offense, only 237 yards. 268 was the total score. Not bad of a score, but once again, Wade with the back-to-back victories. So heading into week number 12, he will have the first overall pick. We'll see who he used it on. But first, we'll go on to the quarterbacks. And oh, look at that. Brady Cook is back. He doesn't get a bye week on SEC Fantasy. So 2 SEC East quarterbacks, Brady Cook of Missouri and Carson Beck of Georgia. Both really the two only going up against conference opponents here this week.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what we do SEC Fantasy for is to highlight the upcoming matchups of the week and some individual matchups within them. So it doesn't really do us any good to talk about a quarterback beating up on an FCS foe. These are two guys that are playing meaningful games this week, and they've been two of the best in the conference. I think that when we do awards, these two will be right up there with Jaden Daniels for overall player of the year and quarterback of the year. And it's because they've been terrific. Brady Cook, as you saw, he had over 300 total yards again against Tennessee after a good showing against Georgia when these two faced each other. And he's playing Florida, who, if you missed the news, let up over 600 total yards to Jaden Daniels. I don't think Brady Cook has the wheels to put up the numbers, but he definitely has the arm to do it. And I think that he could flirt with 400 total yards this weekend.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And both of these quarterbacks are going up against defenses really getting not so great of a performances from their defensive unit. Carson Beck, he looked good, over 300 yards passing against Ole Miss. And then you go on the road to Tennessee. It will still be a hostile environment, but I just think that Georgia's just going to walk in there and bulldoze over them as they have been. So I think that Carson Beck, you got to go with him. I mean, Brock Bowers, he scored a touchdown. He's back and healthy. You got Ladd McConkey. He's one of the best wide receivers. There's like so many weapons around him. And then you got the running back. You have Dejuan Edwards, and you also have Milton too. So Carson Beck, he's got a lot of weapons. I just don't think that Tennessee's defense is going to have much of an answer. So these are probably going to be two of the top quarterbacks that you see here this week with Cook and Beck. And overall, they've been really good for their team. So moving on to the running back position, man, Cody Schrader had himself a game, over 200 yards rushing. He returns to SEC Fantasy. And going up against a Florida team, that defense has definitely been reeling. I'm going to go with Super Mario Anderson, the running back for South Carolina, as he faces off against Kentucky. So talk about Schrader. I mean, we talked about Jarquez Hunter being the SEC running back of the year, but Schrader might have something to say about that.
Yeah, this guy's been the all-purpose king. I mean, he had just another incredible game in the victory over Tennessee. He was the first player in SEC history with 200 rushing yards and 100 receiving yards in a game. So we saw multiple conference records fall this week. He didn't quite get an FBS one like Jaden Daniels, but very impressive to have 300 total yards in a game against a ranked opponent like Tennessee. So as you can see in this picture, we see a bunch of Florida guys missing tackles and letting up touchdowns. I think you'll see a lot of that for Cody Schrader. This was a picture of him scoring last year against the Gators. I think he can do it again this year. And their offense is pretty simple. They throw it to Theo Wees or Malik, not Malik Neighbors or Luther Burden, or they dump it off to Cody Schrader and let the man work. So I think he'll do just that. I think he's pretty much a guarantee to have at least 100 total yards in this one.
You make a great point. I mean, if you want to know why Florida is the where that they at, just look at the two pictures. Their defense cannot make any stops or any tackles once both teams get in there. So Mario Anderson, South Carolina, he's coming off of a 100-yard performance against Vanderbilt. This week he gets Kentucky at home. I don't know what to think of Kentucky's defense. They look good at the start of the season. Alabama really put it to them. Jalen Milroe, once again, he had a good game. Jason McClellan. So I think South Carolina, I mean, they are starting to really play to their potential once again. They need to get 2 more wins to get to that 6-win mark. So this team definitely wants to get there. So I think that Mario Anderson, he has to have another big game. So give me the South Carolina leading rusher and Mario Anderson to pick up some key yardage against Kentucky, and see if the Gamecocks can pick up their 5th win of the season. So those are the 2 running backs. Now let's go on to the pass catchers of the week. We have another Gamecock here, Xavier Leggett, South Carolina wide receiver, going up against Kentucky. And I'm pairing up my quarterback, pretty much a stack here with Ladd McConkey. Last couple of weeks I picked him. He treated me well, so we'll see if he does it again. So talk about Xavier. We saw him a couple of weeks ago in SEC Fantasy. He fared well. We'll see if he can do it again.
Yeah, this is another guy that's just absolutely on fire right now. He had over 200 receiving yards against Jacksonville State, went over 150 this past weekend against Vanderbilt. I know those aren't great opponents, but like you said, we're not too sure about the Kentucky defense. Spencer Rattler slinging it right now, so I'm going to go with Leggett here. I think this is a favorable matchup, and just kind of riding the hot hand here for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I agree with you on that pick. I think that Leggett is definitely going to get over 100 yards, and he has to if South Carolina wants to pull away a victory. Lab McConkey, he's been Mr. Consistent. In Tennessee secondary, I just saw them get absolutely exposed by Luther Burden and company. So one of these Georgia wide, I was between Brock Bowers or Lab McConkey, but man, Lab McConkey has definitely been consistent. So I'm going to go with Ladd to have a big game against Tennessee. I think there's going to be a lot of points to be had for this Georgia offense. So I'm riding with the dogs, so with Beck and also McConkey in this week in SEC Fantasy. And let's go to the defenses. As you can see, we try to stay in the conference, but for our defenses, we're like, nope, we're just going to go safe here. Auburn's going up against New Mexico State. Alabama going up against Chattanooga. But why don't you talk about Auburn's defense coming off of a very good performance against Arkansas?
Exactly. Yeah, this is another momentum pick for me. Auburn has turned in really good efforts against Arkansas and against Mississippi State. Again, those aren't the two best offenses in the conference. We know that, but it's good momentum for this unit, and they have another favorable matchup this week against New Mexico State. And at this point, they're already into a bowl game, and they're just trying to improve their positioning before we see these two teams play next week. But I think Auburn, I think they've had some young guys really come into their own, and I think that this team is ahead of schedule in my opinion. I saw them going 6-6 at best. Looks like they'll go 7-5 at a minimum. And honestly, the way they've been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they win their bowl game. I think they'll have a young, motivated team, and Hugh Freeze will really want to finish the season on a high note. So I like where this Auburn program's headed. I think it's good to get these growing pains out now, because I do think Arkansas and now we know A&M is going to be looking for a new coach. Mississippi State's trying to find direction. So I think Auburn's sitting in a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. Getting that extra, I said about it last week. Getting those extra bowl practices is definitely going to help this squad moving forward. I think that Hugh Freeze is slowly building up that program, and Auburn's definitely going to be a contender. You can't really say in the West anymore because there's going to be no divisions once Oklahoma and Texas get in here. So I would not be surprised if we see both of these defenses once we go to the two per format once we get into the bowl season with Alabama and Auburn's defense. We'll also see these defenses clash in the Iron Bowl next week, so it should be a lot of fun between both of those. But let's go on now to the recap of Week 11. Our Week 11 recap is presented by our friends over at SeatGeek. Like I mentioned, every week there's a lot of sporting events going on, NFL, NHL, NBA, whatever it is. If you're looking for tickets to a sporting event that you're looking to go to, and if you're a first-time user on SeatGeek, you can use code BellyUpSports for 20% off of your first purchase. Okay, let's get into the Week 11 recap, starting with the early 11 a.m. games. And this was not really much of a game here between number 8 Alabama at Kentucky. Alabama officially clinched the SEC West now, especially with Ole Miss losing. It didn't even matter, though, because Alabama just needed one more victory, and they got it. Jalen Milroe just continues to be that. We were talking about early in the season that, is this Alabama team done? Is the dynasty over? Is Nick Saban going to retire? All those questions are no. They are still the Alabama of old. Their defense is really good. I know that Kentucky scored 21, but some of that was in garbage time. Alabama was already up big. But Jalen Milroe continues week in and week out and improving. Like I mentioned, Jace McClellan, he had himself a game. So this running game is going strong, and this Alabama defense is one of the best in the SEC. So I'm sure there's not much to take away from this game.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Alabama is just as dominant as before, but what's impressive is they adapted midseason and got the most out of their team. Had they ran the same offense they were running with Milroe trying to be more of a passer, I think this team might have 3 losses by now, but they adapted. They played to their strengths. I couldn't name 2 wide receivers on Alabama's team. But I I mean, I probably could have gone back to 2011 with this group. I mean, that's usually how strong they are, but it's just not their strong suit this year. Of course, they have really good athletes year in, year out, but they're taking more of a team approach and they're running the football and they're doing it at a really high level. So I think they'll continue to roll, and I think Georgia will as well. So it'll be fun to see them in Atlanta.
Yeah, they'll definitely be rolling into Atlanta if they want to get to the college football playoff. It's pretty much a win out. You win all of your rest of your games, and Alabama is going to be right up there. And if they make it to the college football playoff, I think that they're going to be one of the favorites to hoist that national championship trophy. So Alabama definitely playing at the right time. Like in March Madness, you want to be playing your best in March. Well, Alabama's playing their best, so when it really counts, heading into the month of November. Then we're going to be flipping on to December. The next one, not really much of a game. I mean, these 11 a.m. games are a bunch of snoozers unless you were a fan of South Carolina and Alabama. But South Carolina put it to them like Wade mentioned in SEC Fantasy. I feel like all the playmakers got involved. It was Leggett in the air. He had over 150 yards. Andy Anderson, he had over 100 yards on the ground. And then Spencer Rattler played like the quarterback that we thought he was going to play this season. And this defense, you got to give it to them. I know that Vanderbilt, their offense isn't the best in the SEC, but to really not really shut them out, but only allow 6 points and really put it in a minimum. So with South Carolina now, they sit at 4-6. Do you think there's a little bit of hope between the Gamecock fans that this team could get to that 6th win by the end of the season?
Yeah, it's very eerily similar to last year. We saw South Carolina get beat pretty bad by some teams, and people were questioning whether Beamer was the guy, and then they came out of nowhere and beat a top 5 team in Tennessee at home after a win against Vanderbilt from come behind fashion. They made it a little bit less stressful this year and just beat the brakes off Vanderbilt in this one. But yeah, that offense seems to be rounding into form. Kentucky, I mean, they look beatable. Clemson has not been the Clemson of old. Those are both home games potentially at night. So I think South Carolina's heading in the right direction. I mean, if they take care of business against Kentucky, I mean, that Clemson game is going to be just monumental because the Tigers will have a chance to knock the Gamecocks out of the bowl consideration, and South Carolina can clinch it with a win. So not so fast to write off South Carolina anymore. This was a really impressive game for them. Spencer Rattler still looks like he cares. I mean, he had a really good game. Xavier Leggett is a guy that's going to shoot up draft boards. I mean, he's just a physical freak. Basically has tight end size, but slot receiver speed. He's going to do really well at the next level. So they've got the guys. It's just a matter of putting it together.
Yeah, South Carolina going to make it very interesting with a win against Kentucky. Yeah, that Palmetto Bowl just gets a lot more interesting, especially on South Carolina's side. Obviously, Clemson already made a bowl game, but it definitely has been the season for the Tigers. So, I mean, Dabo coming off of a real monstrous performance against Georgia Tech. Clemson, we'll see if they can get a little winning streak going before that. Yeah, let's root for South Carolina. We wanted to have as many
bowl
SEC
games
teams
as possible.
Yeah, any more bowl games. We need more players to pick from for the SEC fantasy. So South Carolina has to get 2 more on the board if they want to get to bowl eligibility. So South Carolina with a big victory over Vanderbilt, definitely a much-needed win for the Gamecocks moving forward. The next one, another big statement at 2:30, Missouri. I try to tell you, people, don't write off Missouri now. A 36-7 victory against Old Rocky Top, and it was all Missouri offense. Really, really impressed with this defense. I mean, really after the Georgia game and the LSU game, those are really the 2 games that I circled the defense, but those are 2 high-powered offenses. So you can't really fault Missouri's defense in those 2 games, but man, Missouri's offense really been cruising. I think that in the preseason, no one had Missouri getting to 10 wins. I'm going to say, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks, I just don't see them losing to Florida or Arkansas down the stretch. This team is playing their best of their ability, and they'll have ultimate best shot to make it to your New Year's Six bowl game. And Eli Drinkwitz might be the SEC Coach of the Year. Nick Saban now might have to say something about that. But outside of that, I mean, the offense was clicking. Cody Schrader, another 200-yard game. Luther Burden III continues to be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. And then Brady Cook. I mean, he went from, one of his first years in Missouri to now his second year in Missouri. Definitely a room for improvement. But on Tennessee side, definitely not the year that they thought they were. Missouri, man, this is a team that we've definitely been hyping up a lot about. You know, we put them in the title. Missouri 36-7. There's a lot to take away from the Tigers' dominant performance against Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri got out to an early lead, and it was a defensive game. I didn't expect that for the first half, but then they turned a turnover into a very long field goal attempt, and they took a 6-point lead going into the half. I thought that there was a good chance Tennessee would answer it to start the third, but as I checked on this game, by the time I was at the LSU game, I just saw that Missouri kept pulling away touchdown by touchdown, and Tennessee never answered. I mean, I just was really impressed that Missouri was able to shut out Tennessee in the second half. And I think they scored 36 unanswered. I think Tennessee might have scored first in this one. Or maybe they scored the first touchdown. It might have been 7-3 at one point. But just really impressive job here for Missouri. Cody Schrader, you know, you can tell he plays with a lot of heart. And Brady Cook as well. So they got as good of a trio between quarterback, wide receiver, and running back as anybody in this league. And I think they're going to ride that momentum to 2 more victories in the regular season, and they might get their way into like the Cotton Bowl or something, just depending on how Ole Miss were to shake out. But we've seen Ole Miss and Missouri play Georgia, and the Missouri game was much better.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if Missouri definitely wants to make it to New Year's Six, I might have to root for Alabama to lose to get to the 2 losses, and maybe it just comes down to who you beat throughout the regular season. So definitely a big win for Missouri as they continue their quest to maybe 11 wins, especially if they get to 10 in the regular season and 11 can come in the bowl game, and that would definitely be a successful season. You probably finish in the top 10, and you can build towards next year. So definitely a huge win for Missouri. Next one in the SEC in Week 11, and this is pretty much blowout Saturday the way that these scores have been so far. As Auburn went into Arkansas and proved that 2 of us were absolute idiots for thinking that Arkansas was going to win this game, and one of them being smart. Wade, you were definitely the smart one for flipping your pick to Auburn, as Auburn cruised in this one 8-10. Over Arkansas. Arkansas with the loss now falls to 3-7 on 4-7. 3. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be in a bowl game. Sam Pittman's probably going to be one of the next coaches in the SEC that's going to be walking out the door. But like we mentioned, Auburn is starting to trend upwards. You know, they had like a rocky, it was a roller coaster ride. But past couple of weeks, I know it's been against, you know, not great teams, but to put up 48 points definitely is huge for this team going forward. You know, Peyton Thorne, he had a couple of passing touchdowns again. Jarquez Hunter continues to be a flat-out baller, and this Auburn defense continues to just fly out. So this Iron Bowl, the way that Auburn's playing, I would not be surprised if Auburn at least gives Alabama a scare or something. But really impressive Auburn. They eventually clinch their 6th win of the season, have a chance to improve that this week against New Mexico State. So I know that you already said, but what are your overall thoughts of Auburn moving forward? And is it time for Arkansas to get rid of Sam Pittman?
Yeah, I was just really impressed with how Auburn's come on strong down the stretch here. And this was the best offensive game we've seen him have all year. And it really didn't light up the stat sheet. Peyton Thorne, I don't think he threw over 250 yards, added a few with his legs. Jarquez Hunter is the guy who stands out. He had 123 total yards. So, I mean, it's pretty vanilla. They're just feeding Hunter and the other backs, but that wins football games and it puts up 48 points. So, job well done for Auburn. For Arkansas, yeah, I think it's time to move on. We saw Texas A&M make the first move. I think Texas A&M is a more desirable job than Arkansas in its own right. But Arkansas needs to probably make a decision soon, because I do think we're going to see a couple more jobs open up this year, and they need to get, a big name coach in here if they want to maintain relevance, because it could be very easy for them to fall down to the bottom of the conference, especially with the realignment.
Yeah, we could see, another SEC West. We'll see if, maybe Mississippi State goes ahead and gets rid of the, there could be 3 teams in the SEC West that, that don't have a new coach. And it's pretty much, throwing out their cash of who wants to be their next coach. We'll see. We'll see if Arkansas does it soon. I'm sure that, with Jimbo Fisher going out the door, there's going to just be – this is rarely where it one domino falls, that's when the other dominoes fall, because this is going to be the coaching carousel. I mean, I saw today Boise State got rid of their head coach, so it's already started, and it's only the second weekend of November. So it's definitely going to be chaos, but I like the coaching carousel. I always liked it when I played the old NCAA games. So we're going to be continuing on that coaching carousel, but Auburn gets the big victory, and they're going to continue on next week as they go outside of the conference. Moving on in the SEC slate in week number 11, another blowout. Oh, my gosh. Do we have any close games on this schedule, or was it just all blowouts? We'll see if we have anybody. But a top 10 matchup, the only really top 10 matchup that you saw this week in College Game Day was there. There's a lot of hype around this game. Ole Miss at Georgia, and sometimes when you face off against Georgia, they serve you a big old humble pie, as Ole Miss was the first to get on the board. Quinshon Judkins scored on the rushing touchdown, but outside of that, it was all Georgia, 52-17. I mean, Jackson Dart, I'll tell you this. I mean, I know he got knocked out of the game, but he definitely did not play to his potential in this one. But, man, Georgia, once they get going, they are going to be pretty tough to beat. I mean, if they play like this, no one's going to beat them, and they're going to hang another banner in Sanford Stadium. So, Georgia, you already know this team should be number one. They should have been number one, not Ohio State, because they've been struggling in the second half or the first half. They can't complete a full 4 quarters. But Georgia, I mean, they see a top 10 team, they just wake up and choose violence every single time. I mean, if whatever the point spread is, and if it's a top 10 team, you might as well just bet on Georgia every single week. Another impressive victory against Georgia. Let's talk about on the flip side of Ole Miss. Now that they had their second loss, they just cannot, the two losses is to really good teams. Their one was to Alabama. Their offense didn't really do much, and their second loss, their offense only scored 17. So the losses have been pretty similar, where the offense has really been a non-existent against a really good defense.
Yeah, I think a disciplined defense like Georgia and Alabama, I mean, they just don't give in to the option game that Jackson Dart brings. I mean, they're just going to put them in the dirt, to be honest. A team like LSU, it works against. You got guys that get out of position, or you put them on skates on the outside. But Georgia and Alabama are physical teams. They're going to make you come to them and beat their guys, and it's not going to happen too often. And that's what happened here. And honestly, the only shot you have against Georgia is to try to get a lot of points on the board early and make them go shot for shot with you. But if you let them just kind of wade into the pool and get their feet wet and then get their offense going, I mean, you have no chance. I think that Ole Miss needed to be up pretty big in this one early, and they just never could get the points on the board. Georgia looks like they're evolving on offense. Every week, Carson Beck looks more and more comfortable. He would definitely be the top quarterback in the SEC if Jaden Daniels wasn't having the year he's having. But I think this Georgia team's taking it to a whole nother level with the quarterback play. I mean, Stetson Bennett was a very good quarterback, but I don't think he was like a game changer. I think that Beck has that next level talent.
Yeah, this offense is definitely evolving. They're going to be a tough team to beat down the stretch. We'll see if Alabama can really do that, because, I mean, the teams that they have left, we'll see if Tennessee can do it. Georgia Tech, I'll tell you that. They ain't going to play them close, nope. Especially with their offense and their defense. So Alabama will probably be their next, main challenge, especially with that defense. Alabama's defense will probably be the best defense they face all season. So we'll see if that offense can keep on rolling into the month of December and claim another national championship. So moving on. Oh my gosh, another blowout. Mississippi State in the Battle of Maroon. Mississippi State at Texas A&M. One of these coaches fired their head coaches. It was not the team that got beat by 41. Who would have thought that? A team that puts up 51 and okay, I get it. Jimbo Fisher should have been gone a long time ago, but the timing was definitely odd, especially after a blowout victory against Mississippi State, a program that's definitely not had their best of a season. Their bowl eligibility hopes is pretty much out the door at this rate. It's been a quarterback carousel, ever since that Will Rogers has been out with injury. They put in the freshman, they put in Mike Wright. I think that their offense pretty been much non-existent. Their defense, I just think that I don't know what's going on with this program, and they probably just need a full-on reset. Definitely a lot of hard situations, the passing of Mike Leach. Definitely understand that, but this is definitely a program that doesn't have an identity right now. But Texas A&M, I mean, Max Johnson didn't even play in this one. They still scored 51. So, Bobby Trino calling the plays still. It's still working. So we'll see. We'll talk about Texas A&M. I don't want to bring that up too much whenever we get into hot topics. But I guess there's really not much to say in this one. 51-10 win. It's not really many takeaways in this one.
Yeah, I think the only thing outside of the Jimbo Fisher news from this one to me is that I think we've seen the last of Will Rogers at Mississippi State. Definitely this season, maybe ever. They started Mike Wright and then benched him for the third string guy. So I don't know if Rogers is hurt or if they're just preserving him or what the deal is. I mean, he definitely expended a year of eligibility this year. He played in more than 4 games. But with the way this team's playing right now, they're just not even competing. Maybe it's a mutual understanding. I don't know, but it's been a really frustrating year for him and for all of Starkville.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see if Will Rogers, stays in Starkville, hits the transfer portal, and goes like somewhere to Colorado and pair up with Dion after Shadur Sanders declares for the NFL draft. But we'll see. I definitely think that they just need a full-on reset because this is like Mississippi State should not be this bad. Definitely has probably hit the rock bottom in Starkville. We'll see if they make
bring
any
Dion
change.
to Mississippi State is the right answer.
Yeah, that also. I've been throwing out Dan Mullen. I don't know if Mississippi State fans would, accept him back.
Yeah, they'd have to eat some crow on that one.
Yeah, they would have to eat some crow, but I'm just saying, like that program is rolling whenever
it would be
there.
Mutually good.
Yeah, it would. But Dion, I don't know, either in Arkansas or Mississippi State, I would like to see him come on over to the SEC.
It's bold, but it puts him on the map.
Yeah. I mean, you would get definitely the recruiting boost just because of the name alone. So we'll see if anybody. I don't think it's going to be and they're the stupidest program ever, and just throwing out like $100 million contract to Dion.
I don't see that one.
Yeah, I don't see that one either. They're definitely going to go after a big name, especially with all the old money that program has. So we will move on. We'll get into that talk later on. But let's get into a rivalry game that Wade mentioned that we won't see every year now with the SEC going to 16 teams. Defense was optional in this game. Florida at number 19 LSU. If you're like me on Wolf Spreads who took the over, you were pretty happy about this. LSU gets the victory 52-35. And yes, this was, back in the 1990s, this was a rivalry by Florida. But now this win, that's 5 in a row for the Fighting Tigers. So, Wade, you were in the stands. Give us a quick recap on how this game went out. A lot of points.
Yeah, definitely a lot of points. I think we saw the full capabilities of Jaden Daniels' dual threat abilities. He started off the game with some nice throws to Malik Neighbors to get down the field, capped it off with a short touchdown pass to the running back, and then really took the matter into his own hands. So he had an 85-yard rushing touchdown. I think he had a 55-yard rushing touchdown, as well as a few other big runs mixed in there. Florida did a good job of getting pressure to him early, but eventually he was able to find the edge and just absolutely burn the Florida linebackers and burst into the secondary. Passing-wise, it was a good one for LSU as well. Like you mentioned earlier, Brian Thomas led the Tigers in receiving, but Malik Neighbors was right there behind him. Those two guys combined for almost 200 yards in their own right. And then we saw guys like Chris Hilton, Mason Taylor, Kyron Lacey.
Everyone got involved.
Yeah, everybody was getting it. It was spread out. And the defense, they let up 35 points, yes, but they did make some big-time momentum plays. They forced 2 fumbles. I think that led directly to points. And at one point, LSU was down 28-24. And if the defense had let up another score, I mean, Florida would be up 35-24 at that point. And I think there would have been a lot of pressure on the LSU offense like there was against Alabama. But instead, they were able to get a stop, and Daniels was able to go down and take the lead. And LSU never looked back from that moment. So I think that they bent a lot on defense, but they didn't break. And we just kind of know that's how it's going to be with this team. They're not going to pitch a shutout, but they're going to win some games. And I think that it looks pretty good the rest of the way. I mean, Texas A&M firing Jimbo Fisher kind of makes me feel better about that one, but you certainly can't overlook the Aggies. But LSU's looking good for probably the Citrus Bowl at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they've been the hot commodity in Orlando. You know, they were in the Citrus Bowl last year, and then earlier this season they were in Orlando. So we'll see if they make that commitment or not. If not, we might see the Tigers back in the ReliaQuest Bowl down there in Tampa.
That'll be
so
tempting. I'll be down there.
We'll see. We might see Wade in Tampa. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The defense made the stops when they needed. I think that the key play was on fourth down. When I think the game was still close, and Sage Ryan makes that pass breakup, and really, that's whenever the game was over. Once LSU went up like 2 scores, you just knew that it was over. Florida couldn't really stop LSU's offense. It was an eye on Jane Daniels. I mean, he beat you with his legs. He beat you with his arm. Everyone got involved. Josh Williams was involved heavily in the run block. And I mean, he bulldozed over us, a defensive tackle. And some of the players were tagging him about it. So definitely like that attitude from the LSU players. So definitely a big one in Death Valley. They'll have 2 more home games, and that'll be it for the regular season for LSU. Florida, they got 2 rough games coming up. If they want to, they just need one more victory for bowl eligibility. But you go on the road to Missouri and you host Florida State. So we'll see if they can pull off an upset.
Looking good.
Their defense has to play better down the stretch if they want to. I think that their offense definitely has been playing well. I know they've had their lumps past couple of weeks, but putting up 35 points usually you should win. But LSU's offense, so the way that they've been rolling, 52 points. Very good night for Jane Daniels and company as the Tigers pick up their 7th win on the year. So that'll be it for our Week 11 recap. That was all of our games. Let's see it. There we go. Wade, 7-0. Give yourself a round of applause there. That's only our 2nd undefeated stretch there. I went 6-1. Chet went 5-2. So really good pick for all of us. We'll see if we can continue that momentum. We got some easy picks. We'll see heading into week number 12. This is your annual Cupcake Saturday before the rivalry games. So not really much to talk about here. But our SEC Week 12 preview is presented by Fanatics. Our link is going to be scrolling down there every week. They got daily codes going on throughout the holiday season. So definitely take advantage of that. All right, let's get into our SEC Week 12 slate. Like I mentioned, we probably won't spend too much time on games like this because we know who's going to win. It won't be close. We'll probably see the backups probably by the 3rd or 4th quarter, but we have to pick them. We go through all the games here in the conference. I just hate that this week. Hopefully they get rid of this week whenever Texas and Oklahoma joins the conference, because this week it's just like such of a waste of a week. You might as well just take another bye week and then get prepared for your annual rivalry matchup. But nonetheless, Chattanooga at number 8, Alabama. The Mocs go on the road to Tuscaloosa. Are we all going to pick the Alabama Crimson Tide? Probably so, but wait, I'll give you the floor. Yep. All right.
I'll give it the clip. I think Alabama rolls here in this one. Just a tune-up game. It's kind of hard to pick player stats on these ones because you never know if you're going to see a full effort out of the team or whatnot. But yeah, no problem here with whoever plays for Alabama.
Yep, Alabama going to continue on rolling on before their annual rivalry matchup against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. That will definitely be a treat. Next one is UL Monroe go on the road to number 13 Ole Miss after getting embarrassed on the road in Athens. Ole Miss looks to rebound. Do they rebound against the Warhawks this week?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll come out a little flat in this one. UL Monroe is not one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. They're near the bottom, so I think that they'll be overmatched. But I do think Ole Miss will be a little, caught with their tail between their legs on this Saturday after the loss to Georgia. But ultimately they'll pull ahead, and I think they'll win by 30 plus.
Yeah, we'll see if Jackson Dart plays in this one. He went out with an injury. Honestly, I would just keep him out there, put in Spencer Sanders, get you a win, and let Jackson Dart get out there for the Egg Bowl and get a victory against Mississippi State. I think they do get a bounce back here against ULM. Like you mentioned, ULM is not one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. Sun Belt's definitely loaded with a lot of talented teams. So give me Ole Miss to keep moving on. Chet's also going to go with Ole Miss. He picked Ole Miss last week. It did not work. He's picking Ole Miss again. I'm sure it's going to work for him against ULM. Moving on to our non-conference one. This is one of the ones I look forward to because it's an annual. It's not an annual, but it's happened a lot of times. It's a in-state rivalry matchup. Southern Miss at Mississippi State. Southern Miss had one of their worst starts of the season. They were like 1-7, and then a couple back-to-back performances, they look sharp. So Southern Miss has a little momentum. Mississippi State, you don't really know what to expect for them anymore. So you're going to go with an upset. Honestly, if you're going to pick an upset, this is probably going to be it because Mississippi State looks like they're dead in the water at this rate. But you have the Bulldogs picking up a victory here at home.
Well, I tell you, this one would look better on a May Saturday on the diamond between these two teams. I don't really want to watch them play football. I'd rather watch them play baseball. I'm going to give Mississippi State the benefit of the doubt here. I think that they're certainly beatable by a lot of teams in the Sun Belt, but Southern Miss, like you said, they started off the year really bad. I know they're hot now, but I don't know. I'd hope that Mississippi State can take care of business here.
Yeah, I'm hoping Mississippi State gets the victory. I think that they do. Will it be pretty? No, but I do think that they get in the win column. That's all that really matters at this point, just stacking on victories. Chet's, though, going to go the upset. Going to go with Southern Miss. This might be just, happy wife, happy life. Sometimes he's got to go with the wife's alma mater and pick Southern Miss. So I respect that one. So let's go to Mississippi State. One Southern Miss. Like I mentioned, I would not be if Southern Miss pulls off that victory the way that they've been rolling. But if Mississippi State loses that, then we're definitely going to see a coaching fire. Because if you lose to Southern Miss, you definitely got to go. But Abilene Christian at Texas A&M. First game of the post-Jimbo Fisher era. Does Texas A&M pull off the win here?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy introduction to whoever is the interim coach. And I don't think it matters who's at quarterback. I think the team will be in a little bit of a funk. I don't know if the players are in favor of the firing or not. I guess we'll see on Saturday. I almost took Texas A&M's defense. Ultimately went with Auburn just to reward their progress as a team and because of the uncertainty around the coach. But I think they'll have no problems here. I think they'll win by 30+.
I agree. This is just going to be a walk in the park. Get a win and get out. Give me the Aggies. Chet is also going to go with Texas A&M. Gosh, I hate this week. But let's move on. And we finally have a conference game. Thank the Lord that somebody actually wants to play somebody during this week. So this is our SEC Talk game of the week. Is it going to be good? A really good game? Probably not, but it's really the only game that we got. It's the only ranked matchup that we have this week. It's really only the few conference games that we have. But number 1, Georgia at number 21, Tennessee. This was the most talked about game last year. If you remember, Tennessee was the number 1 team, and then Georgia gives them humble pie. So, this is going into Neyland Stadium. I probably would have felt confident, but Tennessee just got really embarrassed against Missouri. So I'm probably not going to pull off the upset. Probably not. But Wade, are you?
No, I'm not that brave. I like what I saw at Georgia. I think they definitely are the number 1 team in the country. And honestly, Tennessee might be ranked because, like you said, there's no other ranked matchups if they're not.
CBS needs to boost their ratings.
Yeah, I mean, okay, they are a 3-loss team or a 2-loss team now? 3-loss. So, yeah, I get it. Like, LSU's still ranked, but they just looked really flat on Saturday. And this offense showed me no capability to pace with Georgia and defensively. If they let up 36 to Missouri, I think they'll let up that or more to Georgia. So I don't see Georgia having much of an issue here.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is going to be ranked in the AP poll. I don't think they're going to be ranked in the college football playoff poll. It would definitely surprise me. Even with the loss to Florida, that's one of the bad losses taken off to their resume. I think that their resume is definitely taking their hits as the weeks go on. I think this is going to be another Georgia route. This is going to be like the Georgia-Tennessee game where it's close probably for about a quarter. Then Georgia just runs the ball up their throat. Tennessee's didn't really so much. Like I mentioned, I would have picked them to keep this one close. But, man, Georgia is starting. Their offense has been clicking. Their defense, one of the best. So I think it's going to be over by the half at this point. So give me Georgia. Chet, picked against Georgia. Is he going to do it again? No. It's probably, we'll see if that's probably going to be one of the last times that you don't see all Georgia on this screen. So we're all picking the dogs on the road in this SEC battle. Moving on, we go back to our snooze fest of the SEC teams facing off against nobodies, New Mexico State. We saw them on national television against UMass, and they lost. Ever since then, it hasn't been pretty for the Aggies as they go on the road to Auburn. Does Auburn continue their hot streak?
Yeah, I think they do. As I've talked about so far today, I'm pretty high on Auburn and the trajectory this team has taken. I think Auburn gets a win here. New Mexico State, they're not a slouch. They are a 7-win team, and they should be going to a bowl game. But Auburn, they're playing really good football right now. I think that they win this one by 30-plus again.
Well said. I think that this is going to be a lot of weeks where a lot of games where you win for 30-plus.
I think I've said
give
it
me
4
Auburn in
times.
this. Yeah, I might as well just put it on repeat. Chet, is he going to go with any crazy upsets? No. It looks like the only upset that we're going to get is probably that Southern Miss one, but that's really not too far-fetched. Moving on, we are going back to – it's like the SEC East is like the only one that is actually playing conference games. The SEC West, like, nope.
Yeah, there's 3 conference games in the East.
Yeah, it is. So Florida at number 11, Missouri. I'm sure that you're going to be picking Missouri, especially with Brady Cook and Cody Schrader on your team against the Gators.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of tipped my pick there, but I think they both have really good matchups. I wasn't going to throw Burden or Weeze in there to go with the trio. Give South Carolina a little love.
No, that would have been the first.
I think that Missouri pretty much just will outmatch Florida's abilities offensively, and then defensively, we've seen this team get better too. So I think this game could be high scoring, but ultimately Missouri will run away with it at home.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's defense has definitely been reeling these past couple of weeks. The 3 straight games, they've given up over 40 points. They go into another hostile environment and an offense that's really feeling themselves. I just don't really see it. Give me Missouri in this one. They've been absolutely riding. They really have all the momentum right now. I think that they're well on their way to 10 wins. So give me Missouri. Chet is going to go with Missouri as well. So a clean sweep for MIZZOU. We do have a comment rolling on, a Jimbo Fisher comment. Well, Jimbo Fisher's firing leaves no doubt about the money flowing through college football. This is crazy. Yep. That I've probably, being a fired head coach is probably one of the best jobs that you can get. You go like 8-4, 7-5, and up, you get, oh, sorry, here's $80 million. Goodbye. Man, I would take like half of that to do that job. So yeah, I don't really feel bad about that. I mean, a couple of years ago, Coach O, he got paid $17 million. So all these fired head coaches, don't feel bad for them because they're getting paid all these millions and millions of dollars. And they're getting sent off like, oh, they go on vacation. But Jimbo, he's definitely going to be back in the coaching ranks. So I think that he still has more fire in him. We have another one. The return on investment looks much better for NIL given than for coaches' compensation packages. Definitely a good point. Like I mentioned, we'll get into the Jimbo talk in a couple of minutes. But we will continue on. Another non-conference one, FIU at Arkansas. There's really not much to play for this one. Arkansas is out of bowl eligibility. FIU is one of the worst teams in the state of Florida right now, especially the way that UCF played. I'm sorry about our sports grandma family. If you listen to me about Oklahoma State, I sincerely apologize for that pick. But who you picking between the Panthers and the Hogs?
As bad as Arkansas looks, I think they get the win here. Florida International, they're a middle of the road Conference USA team, or maybe even bottom half. So I think Arkansas gets it done here. But they're now officially eliminated from the postseason, and I think you have to start thinking about the future, and that means at the coaching position as well as at quarterback. I mean, I think they'll give KJ Jefferson his dues and let him kind of finish things out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start to try to get some looks at some new guys.
Yeah, wouldn't doubt either. I think that Arkansas gets the win here, but I think that they definitely need to look at the future. With the new SEC coming next year, the pack is only going to get stronger as the years go on. So Arkansas definitely gets the win here, but they definitely have to start improving if they really want to be contender in this conference. But Chet, it's also going to go with Woo Pig Sooie. And those are our picks for that game. We will move on now to the SEC East. Thank the Lord for that division for actually playing somebody. So we have Kentucky at South Carolina. Kentucky, it feels like we say this every year. Like, they get off to this hot start, and then all of a sudden they're 6-4. South Carolina's 4-6. Do the Gamecocks get their 5th win, or does Kentucky get a much-needed victory, to stay out of like the Birmingham Bowl at this point?
Hey, I'm riding the momentum, and South Carolina would love to go to that Birmingham Bowl. And to get there, they got to win this game, and they got to beat Clemson. I think they can at least give themselves the opportunity. I think that at night against Kentucky, they see what's in front of them. Kentucky just really hasn't gotten the quarterback play they needed out of Devin Leary. He's not a game changer. I think Spencer Rattler has the ability to be one. So I think that gives South Carolina a slight edge. Like you mentioned, Mario Anderson's finally given this team a run game. And Kentucky lets up some yardage there. So I like South Carolina in this one. I think it'll be close. I think they get a much-needed victory, and it at least makes it very interesting in the Palmetto Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina, their defense, we'll see if they can build on that momentum. Vanderbilt is, like we mentioned, not one of the best offenses, but Kentucky, the way that they've been playing, as long as you can stop Ray Davis, you really have a shot, because like you mentioned, Devin Leary, like, he does not even look like the NC State Devin Leary that we've seen in the past couple of years. I mean,
NC State looks better without him.
Yeah, NC State, the Wolfpack. Hey, I got to give it to you. I mean, if you want a team to ride in bets, ride with the Wolfpack, because they are the most consistent bunch I could ever deal with. But I'm going to go with South Carolina. I probably want to do this in the past couple of weeks, but I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. I'm definitely liking what they're showing. Mario Anderson, I expect him to have a big game. I think that South Carolina's defense puts back-to-back good performances. And the Clemson-South Carolina game, if they win that one, it's pretty much you win and you're in the bowl games. So give me the Gamecocks. Are we going for the sweep?
We are.
Yes, we are. All rolling with the Gamecocks.
Have fun, Kentucky fans.
Bring up a good point. Isn't this one SEC game of the week? Go Gamecocks. Honestly, it'll probably be closer than the Tennessee-Georgia game, so why not? This is the SEC talk game.
Riding on the line here,
Kentucky,
I think that South Carolina season's on the line here. Kentucky for bowl positioning, if they want to get to Florida, a lot on the line here. Whereas with Tennessee and Georgia, I mean, Georgia's already clinched. If they lost, that would be detrimental to their playoff chances. But I think these two teams do have a lot to play for.
Well, I feel like one of us should just pick Kentucky, because this is the kiss of death whenever you see, especially 3 Gamecock logos. Last time we did that, they got absolutely crushed. So South Carolina, only one thing, just win for us. We need more SEC. We need all the SEC teams that we can get. We're already dwindling down some. So South Carolina is one of the few ones that can really save us to get as many SEC teams as we can get in those bowl games. All right, we have one last one. This is the latest game on the SEC slate, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. It's a very weird time, prime time. I know, Georgia State at number 15 LSU. So once again, it will be Saturday night in Death Valley. I'm sure the A&M game will also be a night game that has like either an ESPN or a SEC network game written all over it. But Georgia State, they're one of the better Sun Belt teams, but they're also coming off of a 48-14 loss against Appalachian State. So I don't really know what to think about Georgia State. They have a high-powered offense when they want to show up. But LSU coming off of that big performance against Florida, do you see LSU continuing on against Georgia State?
Yeah, I think Georgia State started the year like 5-0 or something, and they look to be one of the better group of 5 teams, and they've just kind of fizzled as of late. I don't see LSU struggling much with Georgia State. I think that Jaden Daniels will get in and get his business done, and then I think we'll see a lot of Garrett Nussmeier. I think as long as LSU lets Daniels get enough stats for the Heisman discussion, that'll be enough out of him. I think Georgia State, if they can get things clicking offensively and score some points on the road, I think they could certainly do that. I think they could pace with LSU for a little bit, but ultimately, I think this is one where we see Daniels play 3 quarters and then we see Nussmeier come in.
Yep. Well, I don't even have to say anything. That pretty much is probably going to how the game's going to go. So give me LSU once again to pull it off. We know, Chet, like he never picks against LSU on this show. We know that, so you might as
Probably
well
not
pull
this
up.
unless it was Georgia and not Georgia State.
No, he would still pick LSU. I don't think that there's been like one game where LSU is involved that he doesn't pick them. But all rolling with the Tigers. If they win this one, they get it. Texas A&M at home and a little bit of revenge factor, especially after what Texas A&M did to them last year. They handed them pretty bad whenever LSU was, I guess, still in playoff contention that rate, but probably an outside shot last year. All right, that's going to be it for the Week 12 preview. I know that there wasn't too much exciting games, but sometimes the slate just gives you what it gives you. So we will go on right into the big hot topic. It happened today. Jimbo Fisher officially fired from Texas A&M. We pretty much have already alluded to this whenever Texas A&M was after the Miami game. We kind of said, it's probably time for him. And then even last year we were saying that it was time to. But his overall record was 45-25. He was handed a trophy. I don't know if y'all remember this in his press conference. Texas A&M, the university, handed him. It was like not really a trophy, but I guess it was.
It's like a blank plaque.
It was a plaque. It said 20 and then a dash to fill in whatever year that he was going to win the national championship. Well, the dash is still going to be there because Jimbo Fisher didn't win the national championship at Texas A&M. Probably his best year was the 2020 year, whenever A&M was pretty much a game or two away from making it to the college football playoff. That was the year that Ian Book and Notre Dame got in. And, so outside of that, Jimbo Fisher, if you really looked at it, pretty similar record to Kevin Sumlin. So Fisher is out. Wade, who is your guess or list of possibilities that Texas A&M could go after?
All right, here's a bombshell, but I think we're going to have another SEC team looking for a coach that, not a team that's going to fire their coach. I think A&M's going to poach from within. I certainly think they'll call Lane Kiffin. I think a lot of people are saying that's a popular answer for this question. I'm going to take it a step further. I think they go after Eli Drinkowitz from Missouri. The guy's proven he can win in the SEC with a lot less resources and a lot harder place to recruit. I think that A&M has to nail this hire. They have to go with a proven coach in the SEC. Jimbo Fisher is a very proven coach. He won a national championship a couple years before they hired him. A guy like Dabo Swinney, he's a proven coach, but he, again, won a championship out of the ACC. Other big-name coaches, Urban Meyer, did it out of the conference. They need a guy that has done it in the SEC. I guess Meyer did do it back in the day with Florida. But I think they go with recency bias here, and I think they go after Drinkowitz. And I think that would be a really good hire for them. I'd be disappointed if you were to take that job. I like Drinkowitz a lot. I'd rather him stay at Missouri, but money does talk, as we saw my dad's comments. And you don't make a move like this if you don't think you have a chance at a much better replacement. And there's teams that will line up to have Jimbo Fisher coach them next year. And I think maybe even within the SEC. So they got to make a big splash hire here. So I'm curious to see who you have on your tickler.
Well, I will tell you one thing. Money is not the issue at Texas A&M. They got all the money. They could probably hire the Pope if they wanted to for $800 million if they wanted to. But it wouldn't shock me if they try to go somebody in the NFL. It definitely wouldn't surprise me. Who the name, I probably wouldn't know. But there's definitely a list of college names. I mean, they'll probably give, like you mentioned, a couple of SEC guys, probably Lane Kiffin. They ain't going to give Nick Saban. Saban ain't going nowhere. He's going to stay at Alabama. He's going to retire once he's done. Kirby Smart, he ain't leaving Georgia. Brian Kelly, he's not going to be leaving LSU. So you're not going to be touching that. Lane Kiffin's probably your only guy that I don't really see Eli Drinkins. I don't want to see him anywhere else but Missouri. Missouri's
I don't either, but it's kind of like the Dan Mullen situation with Mississippi State.
I've seen Dan Lanning's name pop up, but I can't really see him. Like, why would you want to leave a place like Oregon to go after Texas A&M? I guess just because you want to go back to the SEC. Dan Lanning was the defensive line coach at Georgia, but I'm going to go with Mike Elko. I think that Mike Elko returns to Texas A&M. He was there on staff, I believe, until up to 2018. But he's really built, a power at Duke. Really, like Duke is really everybody thinks it's like a basketball school. But I know you can't really look at them now. Riley Leonard, he's out for the year. I know it's kind of been a fluky season for them, but really, if you look at the 3 years that he's been there, he's really been up to that program. I think that Jonathan Smith, the Oregon State head coach, he could definitely get a call. Washington's head coach, he's definitely going to get a call. But I feel like Texas A&M is going to be a big name. So the coaches I'm throwing out aren't really big names, but those are the guys that I would probably have on our radar. So I'll just throw out Mike Elko there. I think that with the ties that he has with the SEC, being there at Texas A&M, he knows what he has to do. And Mike Elko's really built a juggernaut out there with Duke. So give me Mike Elko.
That's a good name.
Yeah, so there you go. Drinkwitz or Elko, pick your choose. If you have any comments who you think is going to be the next head coach, we'll just let it play out. And whenever we have a head coach, we'll bring it here on the show. We'll go ahead and do that. So definitely going to be interesting couple of weeks. We'll see what direction A&M goes to, but I would not be surprised. It's definitely going to be a big name. Okay, moving on from that, a couple of notes. Alabama clinches the SEC West. Georgia clinches the SEC East. So once again, we'll have Alabama and Georgia. That'll be in a couple of weeks, and we'll have that preview whenever the game goes on. I have to bring up this comment for the next one. Jaden's looking good for the Heisman. Let's get right into the Heisman discussion. Who is our front runner for the Heisman Trophy, and will it be someone from the SEC? So who's your front runner right now heading into Week 12?
I'm going to flip to Jaden Daniels. I think that just statistically, he's well above what we've seen out of Michael Penix or J.J. McCarthy. And we saw this last year with Caleb Williams winning it with a multiple loss team. I think if LSU wins out and they're in the top 15, potentially the top 12 by the time the voting comes around, I think that'll be good enough. Should McCarthy or Penix go undefeated and have a really big game against a team like Oregon or Ohio State, I could see that vaulting them with the Heisman moment. But if we're truly looking at the best player with the best stats and the most dynamic player, I think it's Jaden Daniels. And then those other guys are terrific, but their accolades can be within the conference and they can maybe go ring hunting for a championship. But as far as best player, I think it's Daniels. And I think if you put Daniels on either one of those teams, they would instantly be the national championship favorite. I think he's just that.
Take Daniels off of LSU, and how many wins do they have currently?
Yeah, probably like 4.
Yeah, would not be pretty. But I do agree with you. I think that Jaden Daniels is my front runner too. I think that throughout the record, he's definitely been the best player in all of college football. Realistically, I think that right now that he's definitely going to be a final. If he's not a Heisman finalist, I will grab my pitchforks and whoever is the decider of this, I will burn down whatever building that they're in because Jaden Daniels, I mean, it's like the same thing about the next hot topic that I get to, just gets my blood boiling. But I definitely think that Jaden Daniels, look at his stats. I mean, the man is coming off of a game where he rushed for over 200 yards and threw for over 300 yards. Like, who else is doing that in college football? I mean,
nobody ever has.
Nobody ever has either. But if you looked at it, Tim Tebow in 2007, he won it whenever his team had 3 losses. Lamar, he had 3 losses. Caleb Williams, his team had 3 losses. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. It's not like it's some farce that it hasn't happened. But I think that it's either really between the winner of the Washington-Oregon game between Michael Penix and Bo Nix. I think that Bo Nix is probably the leader in that race. I think that Michael Penix in Washington's kind of been fought. Marvin Harrison, I don't get him. I mean, I know that he's had his stats, but Malik Davis has better stats than him right now. Even Brian Thomas has better stats than him too. So, I mean, bias aside, I think that Jaden Daniels is definitely the front runner and should win the Heisman Trophy. We'll see if it happens. I think that he's most deserving, and the stats.
But if you told me Bo Nix would be the Heisman front runner in 2023. I would have been shocked because he should already be in the NFL.
Not the Auburn version of him, the Oregon version, I could believe. But we'll see. Like you mentioned, you bring up a good point. I think that if LSU probably loses one more, he's probably out of it. But if LSU wins out, it definitely gets very interesting. All right, the next one. Wade, I'm the playoff committee. Make a case to me that Georgia should be the number 1 team on Tuesday's college football playoff ranking.
Well, we just beat the team that you put number 10 by 40 points. And I think that offensively, we're better than we've been in the last 3 years with Carson Beck and a balanced offense. We can run the football, throw the football with anybody. And defensively, the young guys have stepped up and stood the test against a top 15 team in Missouri, giving Georgia back-to-back weeks with top 15 victories. And of course, they'll have that date with Alabama on the horizon. They can make it 3 straight weeks with top 20 victories with the win over Tennessee. I think they do it. And if they don't get there by conference championship weekend, they certainly would if they beat Alabama, in my opinion. That would be enough to jump Michigan or Ohio State, whoever's number one, because they'll be playing Iowa in their conference championship, and Iowa is not Alabama. So just keep winning, and Georgia will be number one.
I agree. If it doesn't happen this week, I've been saying it. If you listen to our Sports Scramble shows, I'm like the world beater for Georgia trying to be the number one team. So I have Georgia fans. If you're listening, I have your back. So don't worry.
And if they aren't, they'll win it as the 2 seed.
Well, yeah, they're gonna win it. Well, if they're the 1 seed, they get to play in the Sugar Bowl, and that would definitely be better for them, and not have to travel way out there to Pasadena to play out in the Rose Bowl. So getting that 1 seed
potentially against Washington. So yeah,
especially against a team like Washington or one of those, Oregon, whoever it is. But getting that number 1 seed is definitely huge for Georgia. If especially playing in New Orleans, that would pretty much be a walk in the park for them. Like whoever plays them, especially if it's Washington, Oregon, they're done. That long of travel. I think that Georgia getting that number 1 seed definitely huge for them if they want to claim another national championship on their side. So that is it for our show in week number 12. Thanks everybody for tuning in, the comments, talking about Jimbo and all of this. So next week, we will recap week number 12. Probably won't be that long of a recap since, as you've seen on the slate, not really too many games to look at. So we'll definitely get into the rivalry games in the rivalry weekend, the final week of the regular season. It's already here. It's like it goes to September, and before you know it, it's already November. So like the weeks just keep on rolling on. So rivalry week will definitely be huge to talk about. Just another note, Sports Scramble will not be tomorrow night. It will probably be postponed to a later date. So we will keep tabs on that to see if we have a show this week. If not, that show will resume next Monday. So that's going to be to be determined. So outside of that, we hope everybody enjoys the rest of your week, and we'll see you next year. Not next year. For the rivalry week. So definitely going to be interesting. Maybe we'll do a little, updated slideshow like we always do every year. So going to be a big week next week in the conference. So hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week. So long.